meant for this country, for Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for asking me and including me in your process of interviews that you are carrying out for this documentary. PLIP grew out of Annex 7. Annex 7 is an integral part of the Dayton Agreement, which basically stated that people had the right to return to their homes of origin. This was the first time that such a language was used for return, and the reason behind that was the war and the displacement. Displacement in Bosnia was not the consequence of war. Displacement in Bosnia was the act used to create ethnically homogeneous areas in Bosnia. There were 4.3 million people, according to the 1991 census in Bosnia. Almost 2.2 million people displaced, more than half of the population of the country. And Annex 7 was aimed at altering the logic of that war. The logic of the war was ethnic cleansing, creating ethnically homogeneous areas in Bosnia. And Annex 7 was about altering the logic of that war. And PLIP was one of the fundamental vehicles used to alter that logic. So its significance for the country in social sense, in demographic sense, in political sense, and the future of the country was extremely significant and important.
Why or was the right to reclaim property so vital to the reconstruction of post-war Bosnia and Herzegovina?
In 1996, I was sitting in one of these towers. That was my last year of work in Bosnia in my previous times here. And you could see the flames going out and going up, houses being burnt in Grbavica. If at that point somebody asked me as UNHCR what 3 things should happen which would help the return process, I would say freedom of movement, security, and property. Property was an essential part. People were forcefully expelled from their homes, and there was no way that we could think about any kind of returns, even any possibility of return, without giving them the right to get their homes back. Now, this operation is distinct from many other operations where we normally talk about right of return to places of origin. In refugee situations, normally when we say if somebody is a refugee from country X, if the conditions are now fine in country X, the person can go back. But we don't go and follow the person until that person has regained the property or the house that that person used to live. In Bosnia, we were trying to put Bosnia together. Return, because of the scale of the displacement and the divisions in the country, return was one of the elements that was, one, for humanitarian reasons, second, for human rights reasons, and third, for the political future of the country. It was very important that people feel that they are getting their property back or getting it reconstructed, and that could help them in restarting their life in the place and in the home from which they were forcefully expelled. So it was of very, very significant importance. And it was unfortunately not done in other places, and we are seeing the consequences of that.
I can see you're very passionate about that. Can you tell me for you personally what that means?
I am passionate about every refugee situation and every return situation. But the way ethnic cleansing happened here, and also I must underline that ethnic cleansing was a term which was coined first time coined in Bosnia. And the way people were expelled, the way killings happened, the way the genocide happened, it was very important. It was very important that the international community stand together and say that this was wrong. Ethnic cleansing will not be acceptable. We would not accept it as a political reality, and we will do everything in our power to return these people to the areas that they wish to return, so that we can at least, we cannot completely, I always say that we can't undo all the wrongs, but at least we can do whatever in our power to mitigate the consequences and effects of that disaster which happened during the war. So in that context, PLIP was an important program. It was important because it gave people the hope that things can change. It was, in the beginning, we didn't think that it would be as successful as it was. In the beginning, we thought, I could not, very personally speaking, I worked here during the war for 4 years. Irrespective of the fact that we said that property is very important, we want to do PLIP, we were talking about it already in '96, I was not very confident that it could ever be implemented. So I am passionate about it in a positive sense. This is something which the international community achieved due to the work of few organizations which joined hands and made it successful.
If we could go back to the OSCE mission, can you tell me how did the OSCE contribute to the return of refugees?
OSCE's contribution was critically important. There are several organizations which worked in this area.
So just